What's up guys, Acer Thorn here, and welcome back to part 2 of my analysis of the ending to The Last of Us. If you haven't seen part 1 of this analysis yet, you won't know what I'm talking about here. So if you want to watch, or maybe even refresh yourself on part 1, then you can click on the card that I provide right here. Alright, now that everyone's all caught up, on with the analysis. The closest I've heard anyone come to making a solid argument in Joel's defense is that Joel has seen evidence that society can be rebuilt without needing to stop the plague. The evidence that Joel sees is in the hydroelectric dam where Tommy has taken up residence. They have a system of government that's run by an elected mayor, Tommy's wife Maria, and they are able to grow crops and raise livestock despite having to deal with infected.
They set up this place with the idea of being self-sustained. We got crops and livestock. Remember how we thought no one could live like this anymore? We're doing it.
This argument is supported by the fact that, at the end of the game, Joel stops the car next to a sign that says that Jackson City is 15 miles away. We know that the hydroelectric dam where Tommy has taken up residence is in that area, due to the cutscene we see immediately after Henry and Sam's deaths.
Jackson County. Means we're close to Jackson City, right?
Should be more than a few miles.
You ready to see dear old brother?
However, it's ultimately a moot point. This, at best, is an argument for relaxing the martial law in the other quarantine zones. However, I do not see this as a compelling argument for not taking any action to cure the infection. Why can't we have our settlements with crops, livestock, and human compassion, but also not have to constantly worry about the infected? Not having to constantly worry about your family and those you hold dear having to be summarily executed by your own hand just because they turned? Why is that not a good thing? Tommy's settlement is certainly miles ahead of the martial law quarantine zones we see at the beginning of the game, but Tommy still says outright that they still have to deal with infected.
Yeah, you still gotta deal with infected though, right?
Who doesn't? But it's the world we live in.
So, while the argument that Tommy and Maria's settlement show the best hope for the future is certainly a compelling argument, I do not see it as conclusive evidence that Joel was justified in stopping Ellie from curing mankind. So now that I've rebutted the most common arguments in Joel's defense, let me discuss the numerous arguments against Joel's actions, of which there are many. My first argument is that Joel is clearly doing this for purely selfish reasons. You can make a 10-hour video discussing whether Ellie's sacrifice would have done any good or how much good it would have done. But even if we accept that the people of this world are too evil to deserve saving, even if we accept that Ellie's sacrifice was likely to be in vain, even if we accept that society can be rebuilt without needing a cure, it ultimately does not matter when deciding whether Joel did the right thing, because it is clear in every possible sense that Joel doesn't care about any of that. We see this during the scene where he finds out that the operation will kill Ellie. Joel hears this news, thinks it over for a total of 5.2 seconds, and then decides he won't allow it to happen.
A vaccine.
But it grows all over the brain.
It does.
Find someone else.
There is no one else.
Maybe there was no guarantee that Ellie's sacrifice would yield a cure. Maybe the rest of the world deserves death. Maybe we can rebuild society without needing a cure for the infection. But I certainly would not feel comfortable making any of those calls, on behalf of the entire world's population, no less. After only 5 seconds of deliberation. Even if all of these arguments were valid, the odds that Joel actually took these factors into consideration before making his decision to kill off the Fireflies is astronomical. And if they were not things that Joel took into consideration, then they could not possibly contribute to the discussion of whether or not Joel did the right thing. It's as simple as that. Think about it this way. Imagine if a cop in our world shot and killed a black man simply because he was black. A posthumous investigation revealed that this guy was in fact a serial killer that the cops had been searching for years. Does that make the racist cop's actions any less evil? No, they don't. Because he didn't know that at the time that the black man was a terrible person. He killed the man solely on account of him being black. Anything he discovered after that was just a bonus. A similar logic applies here. Even if we accept that all of these mitigating factors as being in Joel's favor, it ultimately doesn't exonerate Joel, because he clearly wasn't taking those factors into account when he decided to kill all the Fireflies just to protect one life. How could he, with only 5 seconds of thought? This is in stark contrast to Marlene and the Fireflies. We can tell from the audio recordings that they left for us that they gave this decision a buttload of consideration and consulted with every member of their leadership before making a well-informed, albeit gut-wrenching, decision.
It's 5:30 p.m. on April 28th. I just finished speaking with, more like yelling at our head surgeon. Apparently there's no way to extricate the parasite without eliminating the host. Fancy way of saying we gotta kill the fucking kid. And now they're asking for my go-ahead. The tests just keep getting harder and harder, don't they? I'm so tired. I'm exhausted, and I just want this to end. So be it. Hey, Anna. It's been a while since we spoke. I just gave the okay to proceed with the surgery. I really doubt I had much of a choice. Asking me was more of a formality. I need you to know that I've kept my promise all these years. Despite everything that I was in charge of, I looked after her. I would have done anything for her, and at times here's a chance to save us. All of us. This is what we were after. What you were after. They asked me to kill the smuggler. I'm not about to kill the one man in this facility that might understand the weight of this choice. Maybe he can forgive me. Oh, I miss you, Anna. Your daughter will be with you soon.
So no, Joel was not acting for any noble cause. There was only one cause he could possibly be acting towards after giving it only 5 seconds of thought: his own selfish desires. He did not see Ellie as a surrogate daughter. For details, see part 1 of this analysis. But he clearly wanted Ellie around to fill some kind of void in his life. Think of it like a guy who loses his girlfriend and is upset over the breakup, except that he doesn't really care about her as a person. Rather, he's just sad that he's lost his booty call. Likewise, Joel wanted Ellie around to fill some kind of void in his life. We don't know exactly what void, but it certainly wasn't as his surrogate daughter, for reasons I've already discussed. This, of course, transitions me into my next point. Joel is completely savage and completely ruthless. We see multiple instances in this game where Joel shows absolutely no compassion for anyone or anything. He cares only about himself. The most iconic of these ruthless acts of non-compassion are his interrogation scenes, where he repeatedly tortures his victims in the most brutal methods imaginable until they give him the information he wants. These scenes are almost as hard to watch as the people in them are to feel.
Now, the girl. Is she alive?
What girl? I don't know no girl. Fuck!
Focus right here, right here. I'll pop your goddamn knee off. The girl.
She's alive.
What the fuck are you doing? Keep walking. I said keep walking.
Where was the operating room? I ain't got time for this.
Where? Top floor, the far end.
Maybe you could argue that he's just doing this so he can rescue Ellie. And in both cases, he doesn't have the time to go through the diplomatic channels because time is of the essence. However, that only takes us as far as getting the information out of these people. Once he has the information he seeks, he proceeds to kill them for no reason.
It's right there. You can verify it. Go ask him. Go on. I tell you, I ain't lying.
Fuck you, man. I told you what you wanted. I ain't telling you shit.
That's alright. I believe it.
No, wait!
Where? Top floor, the far end.
What's this hunter gonna do if Joel doesn't kill him? Chase after him? Not with a pried off kneecap, he's not. What's that firefly going to do when Joel has already shot him in the dick twice, to the point where he can't even stand up? Alert the other guards of what's going on? When the other guards see his dead body, they're gonna put 2 and 2 together anyway. See, Joel kills people unless he has a compelling reason to keep them alive. Civilized people keep each other alive until they are forced to kill. You shouldn't need a reason not to kill people. Joel would argue that this is about survival, and that anyone who shows even a hint of compassion in this world simply doesn't live long enough to preach their message of compassion to other people. There is certainly some merit to that. Perhaps the biggest piece of evidence to support that argument comes from an audio recording left by one of the Firefly scientists just before they leave Boulder. He tries to show just a little compassion to the test lab monkeys that they were experimenting on, and, well, see for yourself.
It's 4 pallets of lab equipment all packed up and ready to go. Now, the big question is, what do we do with all you guys? They say the tainted batch needs to be put down. You know what I say? I say screw that. Who made a bigger sacrifice than you, right? Anyone deserves to run free out there. Hey, easy! Shit. Oh no. It bit me. Oh my god.
Joel would probably say, "See? That's what happens in this world to anyone who shows any humanity. You've gotta be ruthless. Otherwise, you're the one who's gonna be killed at the hands of this psychopath." But we need to understand that because Joel is the main character, everything we see about the world is coming from his point of view. A very distorted point of view. There is plenty of evidence that there is still human compassion in this world, and people survive despite having human compassion. One of the biggest pieces of such evidence is by looking at the way NPCs react to Joel's ruthlessness. For example, during his interrogation of the 2 cannibals, when asked whether Ellie was alive, the hunter initially responds thus:
What girl? I don't know no girl.
Notice that he expects Joel to show at least a little restraint. He expects just the slightest shred of humanity out of his captor. Now, when Joel cranks the torture up to 11, of course the cannibal starts spilling the beans, because he understands that his attempts to plead to Joel's humanity are an exercise in futility, since Joel has no humanity to plead to. But that wasn't what he was expecting to happen, and he certainly wasn't expecting as extreme a reaction as he got. So clearly, Joel is unusual in this world, because the other characters treat him as unusual. The biggest counter-argument for this lack of humanity is Henry and Sam's death scene. When Henry kills himself, Joel shows a face that suggests that Henry's death had some sort of effect on him. He saw a small amount of his pre-apocalypse self in Henry right before he died, blaming himself for Sam's death. However, it's ultimately for naught. Joel not only moves on very quickly after Henry and Sam's death, but he forces Ellie to do the same and stop grieving.
I forgot to leave that stupid robot on his grave. What should I do with it?
Ellie.
What? I want to talk about it.
No.
Why not?
How many times do we need to go over this? Things happen, and we move on.
It's just...
That's enough.
You're right. I'm sorry.
And this treatment towards Ellie transitions me to my final point. After rescuing her, and I say rescuing with a liberal helping of air quotes, Joel actually raises Ellie to be a bloodthirsty psychopath in her own right. And this treatment towards Ellie transitions me to my final point. After rescuing her, and I say rescuing with a liberal helping of air quotes, Joel actually raises Ellie to be a bloodthirsty psychopath in her own right. We see evidence of this in the trailer for The Last of Us 2. We already saw from the Left Behind DLC that Ellie is a lesbian, So seeing her kissing another girl at this dance is not a shock. What's a shock for me is what happens during the kiss. We get a glimpse of the stealth gameplay for this game. From a gameplay perspective, it appears to be more of the same from the first game. But what makes me lose my lunch is that after this 8 minutes of blood, gore, and death, the trailer cuts back to Ellie and her girlfriend still making out. Think about that for a minute. This is the sort of thing Ellie thinks about during a hot, steamy makeout session. Killing is arousing to her. Because when you're raised by a man who forces you, literally forces you, to accept death with a blasé shrug, that's the kind of person you grow up to be. Really puts her girlfriend's statement that the people should be terrified of her in a whole new context, doesn't it?
Oh, Ellie. I think they should be terrified.
This, of course, begs the question. What exactly is the main conflict of the sequel? What is Ellie's purpose for leaving the safety of the hydroelectric dam settlement that she and Joel went to live? As of the time of this video being made, the only thing we're told about the sequel's story is that, whereas the first game focused on the main theme of love, the second game will focus on the main theme of hate. So I have to wonder, maybe Ellie, the player character, is the one causing the conflict. Maybe she's sneaking out at night to get her adrenaline fix by picking fights with and killing innocent people for its own sake. In other words, its plot would basically just be 2014's Hatred, only it would probably be cut some slack because it's a sequel to a beloved game and therefore doesn't have to exist in a vacuum. So when Joel rescued Ellie, he didn't just destroy humanity's hope for a cure. He actively created a new monster. One who is just as dangerous to innocent people as the infected are. He didn't just refuse to help fix a problem. He actively created more problems for the world. So did Joel do the right thing when he stopped the Fireflies from performing the operation? After literally years of thinking about it, I can definitively say no. There was no reason to believe that the extraction would fail. The people who contribute to the argument that the world doesn't deserve saving would still cease to terrorize innocents as long as there were prisons to put them in. Joel is a ruthless, psychotic savage who acts solely to satisfy his own selfish desires at the expense of literally anyone else. And what's worst of all, he even raises Ellie in the 5 years since then to be just as bloodthirsty and psychotic as he is. Joel's actions were pure evil, and that's all there is to it. And that will do it for today's video. If you liked this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends. Also, be sure to subscribe for more in-depth story analysis videos. And be sure to check out my daily Let's Play videos, where I take a light-hearted approach to these games and just have a good time. In the meantime, however, I am Acerthorn, and I'll see you guys later.